awaiting Ed's response to see how, Ed, your organization may be feeling about, reduced patient demand. Are you guys seeing anything of that nature start to happen, or do you anticipate that coming soon?
Yeah, I think fortunately, we are seeing an increase in traffic and conversions and inquiries to our website and the phones are ringing more often. I think, but I agree with what was said before. There is kind of a lag time, right? And there's a period of nurturing and handholding that has to happen. And it's, we rely a lot on content to help us with that, right? So helping tell that story, educate, patient testimonials, right? Here are 5 people that we've helped, and here are these unbelievable stories to keep them on the line, right? To keep them interested, keep them engaged. And, making sure that every point of that patient experience is a very thoughtful one. So always being available, retraining different parts of people that are
going to kind of get into some tactical conversations around it. But Lauren, you had said something very similar to me. So I'll definitely want to pick your guys' brains on maybe what some of those specific examples are for anyone listening. Taylor, I know that you were kind of getting your technology adjusted while I asked that first question, but I just opened it up with, are you seeing any trends in patient demand right now based on, what we're seeing as just, consumers in America on the TV and what we're hearing in the economy?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all consumers of healthcare too, right? So when I'm challenging my team, when I sit down with my team, I'm like, okay, well, how would you want this to happen? How do you want online scheduling to work? Or if you have a problem and you have to call, to ask about question about a bill, do you want to call 25 different numbers to get to where you are? Like, put yourself in their shoes. And I know that sounds really simple, but a lot of times, at least in healthcare, up until this point in my career, it's not been that way. It's been flipped. So we really do. I really have seen a big shift, because I've been in healthcare my whole career, and I've seen a big shift just in the last probably 5 years on, consumers have choice now, and we are consumers, right? We want it to be easy, and we want it to be fast. We want high quality. All the reasons why you eat at the restaurants you eat at, and you go to the hotels you go to, and you use you fly on the particular airlines. And how do we get that mentality to move forward? Because we are seeing that, they want transparency. They don't want to call 25 numbers to schedule an appointment, or they're just going to go somewhere else. And for us, we're in a rural area. How do we as a healthcare system figure it out first, and be able to deliver that service to the patient?
Yeah. And I mean, kind of keeping on that topic, I think there are the known patient barriers, right? I mean, there's cost, insurance, convenience, appointment availability, expertise. In healthcare in particular, there's also, potentially some fears of doctors and procedures and all of that. But I think there's probably some new barriers that we're going to come up against in the next, 12 to 24 months. Lauren, I'll ask you first. What do you think some of those may be? Like, does your organization in particular anticipate new barriers on the patient side of the experience that you're trying to solve for?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like you said, kind of those foundational barriers will never go away, whatever industry or business you're in, especially healthcare. And I think for us, it's a lot of stigma, taboo still around therapy, that sort of thing. But I anticipate it'll be ease, exactly as Taylor said. They have choice, and you need to be the brand and the company that the choice is clear, but the process is simple and easy. And so I think if there is a hiccup in the very first step of the process, that's going to be a barrier to conversion, and they won't continue.
Because the patient experience is only part of the equation once they become a patient. How are you going to kind of engage them in those early stages to show that in so few words, or such a short video, or such a landing page, one page of your website that has to say and do and be all things to all people to give them what they need to hear. So I think that's spot on. We've always encouraged, and what I think was a key learning out of COVID was giving the patient options for how they want to engage with you. And I think it's easy for us as marketers to say, well, it's most convenient for us if someone calls, or I'd rather someone fill out a form, to reduce, the bandwidth on our call center. But that in and of itself can become a barrier to a patient who maybe doesn't want to engage with you in that manner. So I love that everyone here seems to really have a key focus on that. Taylor, you kind of got us into this topic, so I'll keep with you on whether you perceive any additional barriers popping up that maybe we hadn't thought of or we need to start thinking of now.
Well, I think it's really going to rely on where you are. Where are your consumers? I'm in extreme rural Appalachia, which is absolutely beautiful area. We serve 29 counties across 4 states. We're the size of New Hampshire, as a visual, with only 1.1 million people. And one of the things that we are challenged with, that we continue to work with our different lobbyists and other things on a daily basis, is broadband. We have major areas of our service area, major portions of our service area without broadband access. That's a huge barrier. Transportation is a really big barrier. And then the other thing is tech literacy. Tried to write at a 3rd grade reading level, it's really, really difficult. So we're trying to balance that with now the tech literacy side of the house, right? So we have, when we're looking at the UX for our apps and our interactions with our virtual health and those sorts of things, how do you make it as easy as possible for the physician or the clinician so they want to use it? But on the other hand, how do you make it easy for the patient? Here's a quick anecdote. Through COVID, like many people, we rolled out our virtual visits very quickly because everything had been shut down. And the first pass at the tip sheet that we sent out was 12 pages long. And when it came across my desk, it had already been out, and I was like, what is this? It was like this binder. Oh, that's the tip sheet. I'm like, for who? That's a tip sheet for our physicians. I'm like, a 12-page tip sheet for a physician who doesn't, they're not going to sit down and read 12 pages to access a virtual, platform. So, of course, we very quickly went in and we shifted all of that around. But we are looking at time, transportation, literacy, and then the biggest thing is the change management. And that's not only on the business side, because of course we're all managing change management every day, but the change management on the patient side too, where we trust the decisions we make with our healthcare providers. They're trusting us with their story and their healthcare and all of this very personal information. Well, how do we change the relationship where they still feel comfortable that they're getting that individualized care that they know they deserve and they want in that relationship? But now it's a video call, like what we're doing right here, and you have 5 minutes with your provider where you're in and out versus having to drive advertising. And I'm going to pinpoint these 5 houses on this street because I know they need this care. But I think that starts to really put people out on an island where it's like, if you change too fast, I think we'll have the opposite impact of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset, right? Do we know what all those barriers are going to be? Do we know how the world is going to change? No, but to be focused on change management and willing and able to adapt when the time comes and just kind of have a team equipped to do that seems like probably the best we can do right now with so much uncertainty. So that's an awesome mindset. Ed, I want to ask you the same question and see if you have a similar or perhaps different opinion coming from an organization where I think you've got 2 very different types of companies. You've got what a lot of people may consider elective within your company. And then you've got, the reconstruction side, which really isn't. I mean, that's a need for people that are coming off of treatment or surgery and they need that service. So how do you think about such a diverse portfolio of companies and how to manage it across all of them?
Right. So I think to everyone else's point, convenience is the number one priority for us, right? How do you make it easy and convenient for not only patients to understand what we do, but have access to us and start that journey up until their appointment, right? But on the flip side, to your point, we do very different things. And in some cases, there are thousands word content. I said before, we have to tell those individuals looking for that plastic surgery operation, whatever it is, that tens of thousands of plastic surgeons do. We have to explain why we do it a little bit different, and how we do it, make it a little bit more convenient for them to get to us, and how their experience is going to be just a little bit better than everyone else's. But on the extreme opposite end of it, those heartbreaking or those, celebratory testimonial videos of, where we changed a person's life, someone that might have lost a limb and lived without it for, 10 years, can now go back to work in the factory that, where he had his accident and continue working again, just like it never happened. That's the type of content and the videos that we're producing, the stories we're trying to tell. But again, going back to, convenience, I just bought a car on Carvana. The most amazing experience, right? I hate going into a car dealership. It's the worst, right? No offense to anyone that has car dealership family members, but that experience that I can go through by sitting on my couch, right, and having a car delivered to my home in 5 days is amazing, and I don't stop talking about it. And we have to really compare it to something like that. We have statistics that say, women suffering breast cancer are doing their bot, pushing them to the right place so that they're not navigating, hundreds of pages on a website. We've deployed dozens of specialty landing pages that just create one-stop shops for individuals that are, researching different ailments that they have and different conditions that they have. So just making that experience easier, giving them as much education as we possibly can, and then finally connecting them to a human. That's really where our focus is.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Your organizations, all three of you, are stepping above and beyond what you would think traditional healthcare would be, which is I provide this service, and you're teaching your communities on tech literacy. And Ed, I know your organization for some of the patients coming in for specialty services, I mean, you're helping them book travel, you're helping them with where to stay when they're coming into town, really, I mean, giving them that full, service so that takes that burden off of them. I mean, it's not, in theory, it's not a healthcare company's job to book flights and hotels, right? But you are helping them get access and making that more convenient to them. And, Lauren, I want to kind of come back to you as we're on this topic, because like Ed just said, booking, buying a car on Carvana right on your couch. I mean, your entire organization is built around that accessibility. So I would love to kind of get your thoughts on creating the best environment for accessibility and convenience. And I know Ed mentioned video in our conversations. You had mentioned what you guys were doing with video now in anticipation of where things may go next year. Can you share some of that strategy with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. It really aligns with what Ed and Taylor have been saying, but at the end of the day, that's kind of our priority. And so we recognize that there was this gap and need for parents to access expert care or expert support rather, without the direct, maybe one-on-one video, because that's not always accessible, and it just doesn't always work. And so I think what we've done is we've tried to build a resource library with video content, podcast content, and just blog or written resource content digitally, so that parents, caregivers can access what they need when they need it. And I think Taylor or Ed, one of you said earlier, you have to give them choice. You have to give them option. And I think that's key here. So with content, it's really important to us to get one piece of curated content from our experts. We have a W-2 employed network of therapists, so we can access and crowdsource content pretty easily. We're really lucky in that regard. And we curate that content and then we offer it in many ways so that parents can access it when they need it, how they need it, at the time that's most convenient.
Yeah, I know you had said, look, I realize the world may change a little bit, and unfortunately families may come into a place where they can't afford, our services for a period of time. but those resources can allow the parents to bridge the gap and ensure their children still receive, some version of support, even if they're not, maybe a active patient that day or that week. So I thought that was just something really great that you had said.
And if you don't mind, I can answer David's question too, just engagement. Of course, content engagement, it's like the hardest thing, of course, in marketing. We are pediatricians and share it with people then that have kind of a network that they can extend and push it out to directly to parents and caregivers. So it's just about figuring out what is the top of the umbrella that you can just drop the content down, and then it just becomes kind of a cause and effect trickle down.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. Sometimes it's you don't know what you don't know situation. So this content may exist, and these stories, Ed, you mentioned, the video testimonials, and hearing a story and saying, I can relate to that. I feel something from it, and it encourages me to seek out care as well. But you have to first know to go and even seek out that information, right? Like what is ARSA doing with those stories and with that content to get it in front of people?
Yeah, it's humanizing these 32 amazing, life-changing surgeons, right? I mentioned it before, Dr. Google is going to present you with thousands of options, but being able to tell the story, behind the doctor, right? This doctor is a parent, he's got young kids. He likes to run marathons. He does all these different things. So we're also telling those stories, and it's the handshakes, it's the handing out cards, it's still print brochures, right? Those things aren't going anywhere for us. And they move the needle. We're doing a big push now on, patient referrals, getting patient liaisons involved, patient experience coordinators. So even when we get a patient in the office, we have a team of 3 or 4 people that are just literally taking them by the hand through every step of that experience. It could be a 20-minute appointment, but that person's going to be from the intake forms right up until they check out, and with follow-ups, so it's that constant connection. While we all think, digital, right? What is the new digital thing? What is the new technology? That's all important. And, when I'm sure we'll talk about measurement. Measurement is, part of every single thing we do. But those tried and true traditional things are also helping us build those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we are interviewing or being interviewed by companies that are, inquiring about working with us, one of the things we always do is read the reviews, because what we want to let organizations know is if there's at least, even if it's perceived, right? Because perception is reality for someone, that operationally or on the care way through to when they're hopefully, in recovery and an alumni of your organization or whatever it looks like, and getting their story that way. So yeah, that's a great point. Taylor, you have 21 hospitals, 300 clinics. So you're doing this at a scale that I think, the rest of us don't quite, from doing it day to day, maybe don't understand or aren't doing currently. How are you thinking about or managing some of the things that Lauren and Ed said, but at such a large scale?
I mean, storytelling is huge. Fun fact for anyone that is not aware, because I was not aware until I lived here. Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is the oldest town in Tennessee, which is right down the street from me, is the storytelling capital of the world.
Interesting.
That's a thing. And it has the International Storytelling Festival every year, which sounds like, oh, that's so cute in your little rural town. You should Google it. You should Dr. Google it. It attracts tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people. It's some insane number annually to this region from all over the world, and they come and they share stories from where they are. It's absolutely incredible. I'd never heard of it before in my life, and now it happens the first weekend of October every year, and it's something that, of course, now I look forward to. But to answer your question on scale, I mean, yes, we're doing exactly what has already been shared, just a little bit different scale. So we try to curate stories. We want people to tell us stories. So We have story receptacles where you share something, a patient testimonial, social media post. And we find that based on our audience segmentation, it's really interesting to see what stories resonate with certain people. The real patient stories, Ed, as you've mentioned, those are the ones that are always, they have the longest run. And it should be of no surprise that anything with a therapy dog or a baby is like 10 times over what a traditional story would be. So we have oh my gosh, we have a children's hospital, and we did a story. It was a story about one of our patients in our children's hospital. And it was a tearjerker, but it was just amazing, made you feel so good, but also incorporated a therapy animal. It was like we created a magical unicorn of a patient testimonial. It was unbelievable the amount of attention it got. So I think that we're all doing the right thing, and it's just the scale is. We have our team is pretty big. So while it sounds like we have 21 hospitals, all these other things, it's really manageable because we have this fantastic team, and all of our team members are really engaged, and they want to tell the stories, and they want to share all the wonderful things that are going on within the health system. And we are all in healthcare because we want to help people, right? All of us, no matter if you're an inpatient, outpatient setting, if you're a physician, or if you're a marketer, we're all in this because our heart is in it to take care of other people. So, being able to
see the amazing video with a therapy dog, and they, inquire about a specific need that they have. This is something I think everybody wants to know, right? Where does the cost of care come into play in that conversation? Is anyone openly talking about cost in the marketing side of things, or is that kind of once they've reached a certain point in their journey? And, Taylor, I'll ask you first, and we'll kind of go backwards around this one.
Right. So, we legally now, with the legislation that was passed, it was like 2 years ago, price transparency is real. And on the website, we have a calculator. So you type in your knee replacement and your insurance, and it gives you a projected out-of-pocket cost. It's really high level, and it's not perfect because, as we all know, paying is so complicated. It's not like, hey, this is the price. The insurance deductibles and who is your all of it is so crazy that there's not like one way to get to that number. So we're working on that. But, what is really special about what we have at Ballot Health is that we are a not-for-profit. We're in a rural setting where cost is extremely important. And we do everything we can to provide financial assistance to those that need the care. But we have this really great ACC where we navigate patients through to make sure they have the care and they need the services they need, and at the price they can afford, even if that's free, including a health it's almost like an insurance card. It's called the Appalachian Highlands Care Network. So think of like your Blue Cross Blue Shield credit, your insurance card. We have a care network now that we have launched where if you qualify based on your income level, if you qualify, you get a card, and there's a network of providers that have joined this network, and you go in and you get care and show your card, and then it's taken care of completely. So cost is top of mind for absolutely everyone, no matter what you make, what your annual income is. And what we try to do is we try to take down those barriers and provide people with as much assistance as we possibly can.
Yeah. Yep. Ed, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. So, it certainly is a topic of conversation, and it's part of the journey. Right. And I think, a lot of what we do is so, because again, there's a big difference between, a brow lift and a reverse diaphragm paralysis surgery, right? Quite a large dollar difference as well. But it's taking that patient by the hand, providing that white glove service that you said before, right? Whether it's transporting them to and from an appointment, or if it's just staying on the phone with them an extra 15 minutes, or bringing in, or, conferencing in a third party or another person that could answer those questions rather than saying, I'll call you back tomorrow. It's making sure that you're checking all of those boxes, because again, a lot of these patients are at a point in their life where they are, we are the absolute last resort, right? And we know that. And we have to do everything in our power to, build that trust.
Get it approved. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what you said is so important, and it's taking the time and being empathetic. And, healthcare, I think gets a bad rap sometimes, just by the nature of the beast, and people not really understanding healthcare and insurers and all the different things, right? All the payer, all of it. And describing, I really do believe they're going to help navigate you to the solution.
Absolutely.
And I think educating your consumer, your targeted consumer on that is so important, because many times through friends, I'll hear, well, so-and-so needs this, but they haven't gone to the X doctor because they can't afford it. And I'm like, well, yes, they can. Everybody that needs care is going to get it. We just need to find the right path to get it there. And it's just making sure that we take the time necessary to have those individual conversations to help those patients get the help they need.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, even something as simple, Lauren, I know on the .com website, even just the insurance page that says this is not the end all be all. Like, insurance, please contact us. Let's have a conversation. Don't let this be a barrier for you. Right. I think putting that out there front and center and making that your positioning, whether it's an ad copy or in a video or on your website, is so important.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we all want our customers, whether they're patients or just consumers, to get the services. We price it very simply. It's one price. We don't have tons of add-ons. We want pricing to feel familiar and easy, but we have to remember that they are paying for an expert service, an expert care. And so if you stand behind your pricing, then you're proud to put it on your website. You're proud to share it, knowing, as Taylor and Ed spoke about, that we will get you to the service, whatever that looks like. So I think as marketers too, we can try and have conversations about other avenues, whether it is financial aid, care credit. There's so many solutions, but you just have to be willing to figure them out and offer them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those roles, those patient care coordinators are so important. So I think it's great that you guys all are investing in that. Speaking of investment, I want to get kind of to one or two tactical questions before we wrap this up. And that is really, okay, so let's assume, I'm just going to make a statement so that we can all act under this. Let's assume that we're going to all experience some budget cuts in marketing next year. Let's assume that our organizations are going to, potentially invest a little bit more, like you said. I'll ask you first. What do you if you had to cut budget, what would you go all in with?
I mean, so much of our business is driven through advertising, right? We have an enormous advertising budget each month, and we need it. Right. We rely on that so much. But on the other side of it, we measure every single thing that we do. I mean, if a doctor is showing up at an event or a fundraiser and she wants to hand out magnets, I'm tracking every single one of those magnets, right? I have unique phone numbers and QR codes, and so we're measuring every single thing. I need those measurement tools, right? So whether it's analyzing my call center, with technology, we use Callbox. They've been a tremendous partner for us. And we also, we are super focused on reputation management with ratings and reviews of our physicians. We have a very kind of old school approach to that, that was here when I got here. But we're also bringing in third-party tools for that as well. Doing the things that worked for you this year, right? We're going to cut so many things that we did this year that just didn't work. It's going to make us smarter. It's going to make us more efficient, better control of our dollars and our spend next year. So it's really, hopefully if you're keeping a close eye on everything and you're doing what's working and you're eliminating the things that you tried that didn't work, hopefully you don't have to cut too much.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Data-driven decisioning on where you would decide to do that.
Yeah.
Don't give up on the tracking piece. Make sure you're investing in that no matter what. I love that you mentioned Callbox by name. I think that's a tool that anyone listening could definitely check out if you need to go deeper beyond, understanding outcomes of calls, right? Because that's a huge problem in what we see is that there's so much activity coming through call centers, and understanding the barriers at scale by analyzing those calls it can help you in so many ways. So I think that's a great one not to lose out on. Lauren, what would your focuses be? And I have to say, Lauren built the .com therapy website herself. So talk about cost saving. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it is cost saving for sure. We have a tiny team. And so marketing is utilize those skills, over and over again. But to Ed's point, we are simple trackers, but we use Google spreadsheets and we track everything, and we know where our ROI is best, and we spend money wisely in those areas. So social for us, for sure. Events, those are the things that we're spending money on. And then the rest we either figure out or we don't do. And that's the reality. And it's okay to not do everything.
Yeah, I think focusing, for your organization in particular, on kind of the most engaging channels, I think, right? Sometimes it's I need the widest reach, and sometimes it's I need the deepest reach possible. And so I think, it's not a one size fits all, but really understanding what's going to, draw the biggest yield for your company is most important.
Yeah.
Taylor, what about you guys? What would you kind of focus in on the most if you had to constrain in any way?
Well, we are.
Yeah, already there.
Hospital systems. It's like, you have to be as efficient as possible every single day. But, I think that's okay that when the person calls is the person on the receiving line saying, where did you hear about us? Or are they notating it appropriately in our CRM? So when I go in and pull it, can I say, okay, it was this one billboard? Probably not. But with digital, you can get really sophisticated. And with print, you could do QR code, you could do different things. So if we're not able to track it, I don't want to not spend a lot of time and energy on it, where there are some things that are absolutely necessary. There's certain areas in the community where we have billboards. I'm not a huge fan of the billboard, but billboards are not ever going to go away here. And it's something that I've had to embrace. But if it can be tracked and we can take it back to a particular campaign and see what we're driving particular patients to this one, whatever it is that we're promoting, that is something that we can sit down with our executive leadership team and say, I know you're wanting to reduce the budget, but look at the impact of this amount of dollars made on this one particular service line for this time frame. And if we reduce that, we're not going to be able to see this impact. So we've gotten so sophisticated that we have every 30 days, we have an up.
And I want to close this out with one kind of question. And I know that the patient demand to kind of provider availability gap has been growing. And I know that's something that everyone has been feeling the impact of. And I'll ask each of you quickly as our closing thought, how you're thinking about that going into next year with relation to marketing budget, perhaps, or investment from your organization. And are you all seeing that the need to ensure that the provider availability is in the top initiatives of your organization? Taylor, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, the first place we're starting is with the provider, and what is their comfort level with productivity. Some providers want to spend 45 minutes with the patient. Some providers are okay spending 15 minutes and they feel like they've delivered the same level of care. So we're starting there, of course. But we're getting ready to launch our asynchronous visits. And I think that's going to be tremendous, because I think that there are many to decrease the traffic in our urgent cares and our primary care clinics when it's something that's routine. So that I think is going to help. And I also think that getting really the change management piece and really rolling out on online scheduling and virtual visits is going to help too. We're seeing an average call takes about 8 to 10 minutes to schedule a call. And if you have a provider getting 500 calls a day, you can do the math. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of hours back into that practice's day where they could be providing, a different patient experience. So that's really what we're looking at. So it's just improving access, making it as easy as possible. And then what are other avenues for you to interact with a physician without being there in person?
I love it. It's not just, I need more bodies, to see patients, but it's how can I take the ones that I have and help them to see more patients in a given day, right? I mean, that gets you to the same endpoint, which is provide care to everyone who comes seeking it. So I think that's amazing. Ed, I'll let you go. And then Lauren, we'll wrap it up with you.
Yeah, I mean, same. Yes to all of those points, right? But we're also looking for more bodies to off of the call center, increasing telehealth visits, bots to kind of answer some of those simple questions. We're investing. We're looking at all those things. Super important.
Awesome. Yeah, technology at the base of it all. I know. Lauren, any thoughts from you on? I know you're virtual, so how do you see more efficiency out of that?
Well, really, I think it's twofold. So one, you have to remember providers are also your customers, so nurture them, make sure they're happy and healthy. And then actually, Martha in the chat kind of said it. You have to set patient expectations to know exactly what they're getting. And from a marketing perspective, that's copy. That's even before they get into a session, we send them information about what to expect from that session so that the provider and the patient are aligned from the very first meeting. And then you can just be a little bit more agile and more efficient.